Hey, it's Kate. Welcome back. Today I'm talking about how I changed my career 5 times before the age of 31. So, just to give you some background about where I came from, let's jump in. So, initially, when I was in college, I majored in communications with a focus in advertising and promotions and minored in marketing. And I really had no idea what I wanted to do with that after I graduated. So I ended up doing two internships. One was actually on campus, doing marketing and advertising for the career services department. And then I did a summer internship before my senior year of college at a small marketing agency. At the time, not everyone in my school was even doing internships. So I felt really lucky to have the experience of two internships, but even after I graduated, I was so confused and lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started applying to jobs, towards the end of college before I was graduating. And because I didn't really have any sort of clear direction, I was just throwing my resume out there to so many different jobs, just hoping that something was going to stick. I ended up, graduating school and I was still a few months into the summer without any leads, without anything really going on. I did end up having a couple of interviews that didn't work out, and I still was just feeling really lost. And again, like the fact that I didn't have any true intentions of what I wanted, I think was a big reason as to why I felt so lost. And I'll talk about later how having more intention and knowing what I wanted was a lot easier of a process to get a job with that intention. So I ultimately finally landed my first job, which was a part time job at a marketing agency. And so I became an employee. I sat at a cubicle, which is something that I told myself I was never going to do. Like, that was the one thing that I had said to myself, you're not going to be one of those people that sits in a cubicle for the rest of her life, because that's fine for some people, but for me, it wasn't it. It was not what I wanted. It was not the desire that I had. And I ended up there anyways. So I ended up as an employee. And 2 weeks into my part time job, I was offered full time. I remember sitting there with my boss at the time offering me this full time position, and I was having such a mix of emotions because I didn't want to work full time yet. I didn't want to be in an office 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I remember my response being like, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. Like, because I felt in that moment like that was the right choice and that I had to make that choice, because if I didn't, what the heck else was I going to do? And I remember my boss at the time being like, "You don't sound too excited. Like, I thought you would be thrilled." And I kind of had to make it up in the moment. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, like it's great. I'm so excited." So I ended up in my first full time role after college, and it was fine and it went okay. And a couple months in, I actually got promoted. So I was like a digital marketing coordinator and I got promoted to a project manager. So that came with a little bit of a raise, that came with more responsibility, and I was learning a ton. And so I was really developing my skills in the space of the marketing agency world and building connections with my coworkers and everything like that. So things were off to an okay start. And I ended up staying in this job for about a year and a half before I ultimately decided. This was where I really made my first shift at the age of 24, I believe I was. Yeah, I was only 24 at the time. So, hadn't even been at the job for 2 years. I had been asking for a raise because I was given more roles, more responsibilities, and my pay was not reflecting that. And I was told for about like 6 months, like, yes, the raise is going to come. And I sat and I waited and I trusted and it never came. So finally I said, no, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to sit here and wait around. And this was the first time that I really felt like confident. I was standing up for myself and I was like, I'm going to look for a new job. So this is the first change in my career that I made, which was going to a new company, getting in a totally new job, but I was still really in the same field. And I ended up being really, really specific about what I wanted for my job. And if you remember a little while ago, I said like having the specifics, having that intention and knowing exactly what I was looking for was a huge, huge help to finding my next job, my next, position in my career because I knew exactly what I was looking for. So I wasn't wasting time just throwing applications out to any company that, had a job opening. And I was very intentional and I had confidence. And, at the time I didn't know it, but I was really and truly visualizing and manifesting my ideal position that I was looking to apply to. And ultimately, I found it. I knew I wanted to, be in another digital marketing company. I knew I still wanted to do project management because at the time I still liked it. I knew that the culture was important to me and just how all the other employees were together. And I knew that I wanted to be paid more. And so I asked for what I wanted. And I ended up applying to this job. I had an interview. Was asked for an interview maybe 2 days later after I applied, went into the interview later that week and was offered the job. Like all this happened within a span of a week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my job already. And also, just a quick side note too on that, this job required 3 to 5 years of experience. I had less than a year and a half. And I said, forget it. I know who I am. I know that my skills are good. So I'm going to apply and they're going to see for who I am and be able to make that decision if they think I'm going to be a great asset to their team. And they didn't care about the years of experience because it was exactly that. I was ready to learn, I was ready to work, and everything went well. So that was my second job. And that was the first kind of shift in my career. The second shift in my career really came from actually, I was in the same job. I had been promoted to a senior project manager. So that was a little bit of a shift, but I wanted to actually talk about how I made a shift within my job. And that was me asking for the permission and ability to work from home 1 day a week. So this was back in 2017 when working remotely wasn't as big as it is today. So me asking to work from home 1 day a week was kind of a big deal because everyone was really expected to be in the office 5 days a week. But I had a really long commute. I had dogs at home and I really just knew that having that 1 day a week at home was going to be so good for me, for my mental health, for, my ability to fit other things in without that long commute to and from work. And I was honestly really scared to ask for it at first, but I had proven that I was such an amazing employee and I was someone they could count on that I was like, what do I have to lose? So that was an important, time in my career where I knew what I wanted and I decided to ask for it. The worst that could happen was I was told no, and I could go from there and, figure out what might work. Maybe there was compromise available, but ultimately I asked, I was granted that option. And so that's what I kind of call my second change within my career. The third change in my career was definitely a much bigger change. I ended up seeing my holistic life coach in 2018, and I was working with her on what do I actually want out of my career. This is where I got really, really intentional, and I had to dig deep and figure out what my priorities were, what my real values were, and how could I build a career that would allow me to have the dream life that I wanted. And so ultimately, I decided to become an entrepreneur. And the story of, becoming an entrepreneur and building my businesses is a very long, different story that I'll definitely save for another video. But the kind of short version of it is my now fiance and I started a marketing agency and I left my full-time job at the end of 2019 and we started working with small business owners, in particular people that were in the health and wellness space, so health and wellness entrepreneurs, small business owners, and we were building websites for them, helping them with their advertising, branding, we were really like this full service small digital marketing agency, and it was great and it was fulfilling. And I did so much networking, met so many people, built so many websites, was able to even help people that I knew that were starting their own entrepreneurship journey. So it was a really cool and exciting time. And that lasted for probably a little over a year until we again shifted. Now, this is the fourth shift. We shifted into doing more marketing consulting. So we wanted like longer term contracts with bigger companies where we could kind of go in and really help out the marketing that already existed. And again, we became really, really focused and really intentional, and we're visualizing exactly what we wanted. And ultimately, after some time and, belief and networking and taking, the right moves to put ourselves out there, the right opportunity came. And we ended up in a really fantastic long-term contract where we didn't have to have so many different small projects and small clients. So we did that, and we did that for a long time. We actually did it for, like, over 2 years, and ultimately, that was, again, a really great experience. I was very fulfilled. I knew that, like, what I was doing made a difference. My time felt valuable, and I had the freedom, for the most part, that I desired. And then my 5th and final shift came, um it was like, I believe it was March 31st, 2023. For some reason, the date stands out in my mind. And I was not feeling great about how things were going. Things with this client was getting very, very busy. I was required to be on a lot more meetings than what I had initially kind of agreed to. So I said, "Hey, I can't do this anymore." And back in 2020, actually, I became a holistic life coach. I went through the certification and to become a coach, and I started working with some clients and building that business alongside my marketing business. So the two were kind of running together until I became way too busy with my marketing business and kind of had to put my coaching business on the side. And that felt really terrible. So ultimately, back in, towards the beginning of 2023, I said to my fiance, I said, I cannot do this marketing thing anymore. Like, I've been in marketing for almost 10 years now, and it's run its course. I want to be a coach. I want to help people. Specifically, I want to help people, with alignment in their career, with how they can really create the best career for themselves, whether that's as an employee, having a side business, being a full-time entrepreneur or small business owner. And I want to help them to prioritize themselves and their well-being and everything to create that dream life that they want. So I said, this is it. Like, this is the fifth and final time that I am going to make this big shift. So, October of 2023, I said goodbye to our long term marketing contract client, and I decided to start my coaching back up again full time. Dove completely in, went through a lot to figure out how I wanted to run things, and here I am. So that's kind of my story about how I shifted 5 different times. All of this happened before I turned 32 years old. So that's a lot of shifts, a lot. Sometimes people start a job after college and then they're just there for a very long time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm here to tell you there's nothing wrong with shifting, with changing, with deciding, hey, I've changed my mind and I actually don't want this anymore. Or I feel like my values have changed. And, maybe you have a family and you're not as focused on getting promoted or growing your career. And all of those things are normal and they're okay, and you are allowed to change your mind. It doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something. You are more than allowed to change and want to shift. I hope that my story was insightful. Maybe you were able to relate on certain things. And I invite you to get really, really intentional on what you want. Ask for what you want in your current job if you like where you are. Don't be afraid to search for another job. There are so many jobs out there. There's always opportunities, there's always options. And even if something doesn't happen immediately, you have to know that the more that you focus on building and growing and finding your right fit, the more likely it is to come to you. Maybe it comes to you and shows up in a little bit of a different way. It's a little bit of a different opportunity, but you have to always remember to keep growing, keep looking for what you want. And ultimately, you're going to find the career that feels in alignment with you. And don't just stop. Like I said, I shifted 5 times before the age or by the age of 31, and there's nothing wrong with that. So don't listen to people telling you like not to change your career too much or to not apply to jobs that you don't have enough experience on paper in. Just keep moving and keep going towards what you want until you are happy and satisfied and fulfilled. Thanks so much for listening to my story, and I hope to see you soon.